their name, so we won't allow them to join the meeting. So to start off the meeting, after I give some prayers, I'll give you the lineup on today's meeting, and also I hope us to welcome our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapundira. He just joined us now. So before I go any further, I'm going to pray in my own indigenous language, which is Shona from Harare, Zimbabwe. Lakina Matei. Tenzi mababa tokutenda nechipo cheupenyu chamunotipaswa nezuva. Tauya pamberi pechigaro chenyu Mwari, dai mungatitungamirira zvese zvaticharonga nezvachataura pane uno musangano uno ugova zvinofamba zvakanaka. Tichiisa maleaders edu Mwari Baba ari pakati pemusangano uno, paChristopher Mapundira tenzi wangu, kuita kuti pavanotidzidzisa tive kunobata, uye Mwari Baba vape simba rekuramba vachitifundisa nezve kuti tiende kumberi, uye Mwari Baba tive tinorarama tisingatyi. Zvese izvo tenzi ndozita mune iyo mbiri yenyu inogara nokusingaperi. Amen. Yes, again, welcome to those who just joined us. My name is Award for those who are new here, and I'm your moderator for today's meeting, and also I have my co-host Yvonne Dushime. Lined up today, we're going to hear some country reports. I can see people are not compiling country reports. I'm not so sure why, but I'll definitely reach out to the country representative to ask what's the reason behind for not combining the country reports. So I'll reach out to those spokesperson. Now we're going to have a country report from Andrew Magombo. He's an ambassador from Malawi. And also we're going to hear a Pan-African Healthcare lecture about the herbs with Nana Akua. So I hope each and every one of you is ready. And also these classes, they are free, so you are always free to invite your family and friends to join the meetings with us, so that we can share our ideas and also our solutions to our problems. Again, to those who didn't get to download the app, on Facebook, there's a link. There are links on the description section. Kindly download the application. We encourage each and everyone to use the application. There are updates. I guess Yvonne is going to give us an update about these updates on our application. So you can go ahead and update it on App Store or Google Play Store. Thank you all for using the application. More businesses are being recommended using the ILoveBlackPeople safe places all over the world. Let's keep on notifying other fellow Black people that there are places which are safe for them, which exist even here in Africa, in Asia, Europe, and America, anywhere in the world. There are places which are safe for Black people. So without us recommending them, people won't know. So let's go ahead and invite more Black folks to join us and continue recommending safe places. We welcome each and every one of you. Without wasting much of our time, I would like to ask my brother from Malawi, Ambassador Andrew Magombo, to give us a speech. Yes, Brother Andrew, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself. Sorry. Yes, you can unmute yourself, Brother Andrew. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead and present your country report. Welcome to the Pan-African History course. Yes, Andrew, can't hear you. Yes, Brother Andrew, are you facing network challenges?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Present the report. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can go ahead and present your report.
Okay. I have a report from Malawi, which is covering the week beginning from 21st May 2022 to 27th May 2022. On country weekly activities, activities to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. Malawi is in a state of alert against all racism and xenophobic attacks against Malawian immigrants. However, rumors or information related to these issues were not heard in this week. This country is still struggling economically as forex is scarce and the prices of necessities are on a hike almost on daily basis. This is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic and also to the war in Russia and Ukraine. Devaluation of Malawian kwacha. Yesterday, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, which is a central bank, has announced the devaluation of our currency, the Malawian kwacha, by 25%, effective from yesterday, the 27th May 2022. And this development has caused alarm and cries from all angles of the country, as economic crisis is expected to hit hard on the citizens. Shared the weekly tasks for the I Love Black People members and ambassadors after members attended the Zoom meeting last week on healthcare and Pan-African history lectures. And within the week, members were encouraged to update the I Love Black People app and give feedback and share it to family and friends to ensure that they have access to the safe places. Members received a weekly newsletter highlighting the I Love Black People app, safe places, and our 8 areas of focus. And within the week, social media platforms of our community was shared and members were encouraged to follow, subscribe, like, and share. On 25th May 2022, members commemorated and celebrated the African Liberation Day and spread the love in many ways. And within the week, members were encouraged to register their attendance to the Saturday school. And yesterday, the community members and ambassadors were asked to prepare, write, and submit weekly reports. COVID-19 update in Malawi as of yesterday, 27th May 2022. New cases, we had 10. Cumulatively, we have 85,964 cases. Total cases recovered amounting up to 82,860. And as of now, total tests conducted amounting up to 582,844. Currently admitted, we have 4 cases, and total deaths are now up to 2,639. And this is according to the Ministry of Health in Malawi. The COVID-19 situation in Malawi is considered stable, yet in a state of alert. And this report was compiled by Andrew Magombo. We must unite now or perish. This is a quote from Kwame Nkrumah. I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Ambassador Andrew Magombo, for being the spokesperson of Malawi and giving us updates on what is transpiring then in Malawi. Hopefully, I'll reach out to you and get in touch. Maybe in June, I'll be traveling to Malawi as well. So I will reach out to you, to your inbox, as we have been talking throughout the week. I'll also give you updates on this tour, which I'm about to start this upcoming June. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, Brother Andrew.
Thank you.
All right. So on next, we're going to have our brother, who is also an ambassador, spokesperson for Ghana, for I Love Black People. His name is Terry Anton, to give us Ghana.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Brother Terry, but there is a background sound. I don't know if you can fix that. Yes, Brother Terry, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Yes, Brother Terry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead and present your report.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give report about activities that went within the week. To begin with, members who attended last week Zoom meeting were thanked.
Sorry, brother Jerry, we can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
It's like someone disturbed with a call, that's why.
All right, so you can continue.
Those who were not able to attend last week's Zoom meeting were encouraged to do their best to attend today's own. Also, we're reminded to download the I Love Black People app to identify and recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. Links were provided for easy download by both iOS and Android users. We were given a brief history behind the celebration of the African Union Day, which was on the 25th of May. It was added that for the past 2 decades, former colonizers are sponsoring NGOs to rename the celebration African Day by removing the liberation to change the revolutionary meaning of the day. Last but not least, we were reminded of writing weekly reports about activities that went on in the group. COVID-19 updates in Ghana. Ghana has recorded a total of 161,370 since the emergence of COVID-19. Out of this, the current active cases in Ghana are 44. The number of recoveries are 159,881, and the deaths recorded so far are 1,445. Total number of COVID-19 vaccine doses given are 16,122,862. Derry Anthony reporting from Ghana. I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, our brother Derry Anton, for giving us a report on behalf of people of Ghana. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So without wasting time, we do have our lead developer, Alex Wafula from Kenya. He's going to give us an update about our application, and also we can have after Alex, we can have our founder, Mr. Christopher Mapondera, lead us in this about the Pan-Africanism. Thank you, Alex. You can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, Yvonne, can you mute Derry? Or Derry, can you mute yourself? All right, thank you. Yes, Alex, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on today. Yeah, so for those of you us for the first time for this call, in case you're not aware, we do have an app called the I Love Black People Safe Places app. And the whole purpose for this app is to allow you, our community, to help us identify safe places for Black people. So for like for any businesses you visit or places you visit that you use for your day-to-day activities, such as barbershops, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, we'll love it if you could recommend your favorite places on our app. So basically, we're looking for places that will be safe for Black people. So any place that's really safe for you, we consider that place to be safe for Black people. And the reason we're really doing this, the whole purpose of the app eventually is to be able to help Black people identify safe places across the globe. This can be whether they are home or whether they are traveling in their neighborhoods. We're eventually hoping this will be the one-stop app for Black people to go to identify places where they'll be treated with dignity and respect without being discriminated against. So we are not there yet. We don't have those businesses identified, and that's why we really need your help, the help of the community, to help us identify these places. So yeah, currently once you get on the app, we currently just offer recommendations, not really recommendations. We currently help you identify businesses that are close to you, and essentially we're basically asking you, okay, I see you're in this location currently and we see these businesses in that location. Could you confirm which of these businesses are Black friendly? So in essence, we really don't have, we haven't identified these businesses as yet. So we are hoping through the app, you can help us make those identifications. And also we do have a notifications feature whereby like when you're moving around in case, because maybe you don't have the app open, the notification feature basically allows you to basically sends you notifications to show businesses that are close by your area. And that way it kind of reminds you to use the app to recommend businesses. So like that's something we're really looking for feedback from the community, whether it's working as you expected, or whether there are things that we need to change to make it work better. So for the most part of it, we're really looking for feedback for this app because it's still around 2 months old on the App Store. So like there are a lot of improvements to be made, and we are hoping to get feedback from you, the people who are using it, to be able to make those improvements. Then if you have not been able to download it so far, we do have the app on the on Android's Play Store and Apple's Apple Store as well. And I think Awad will share the link, the download link for both stores on the chat section. So we'll definitely be happy if we'll download the app, give us feedback in terms of your experiences with the app so far. Let us know what you can improve, whether it's whether there are things that are working as expected. Maybe we can further build on those things. But yes, if you haven't downloaded it yet, please do go ahead and download it. And for those of you who've downloaded the app and still have it on your phone, we've been releasing updates over the past couple of weeks. So just go to the Play Store and App Store to just double check that you have the latest app. If not, it would be great if you can update it to kind of see the latest features we have. Like a lot of the updates we've made are based on feedback you've given us. So you can go in and just check to see like if anything you spoke about before, whether it's been implemented, it's as you expect. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to add, unless there are any questions as well from the call.
Yes, thank you so much, Brother Alex. I can see there are no questions. If you do have any questions about our application, and if you don't understand how it does work, you can kindly write in the chat room. Our moderators will reach out to you, or even your phone numbers, so that we can assist you how our application works. But it's very easy to use, and also it doesn't take a lot of time to recommend at least 10 business a day. So encourage each and every one of you to download and use it. And also, please, can you constantly check through the App Store and Google Store for updates, so that we can keep updated to the new features on our application. Thank you so much, Brother Alex, for the updates. If we do have any questions, we will reach out to you through WhatsApp, so that we can respond to each and every question which have been asked.
All right, thank you so much, Awad.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, my deepest condolences to our brother from Ghana. His name is Brother Ango Almami. He lost his son on the 25th of May on the African Liberation Day. My deepest condolences to you and your family, brother. May his soul rest in peace. So without wasting time, we're going to have our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapondera, to lead us on today's speech. Yes, co-founder Christopher Mapondera, can you hear me? Yes, you can unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's always a pleasure to meet with you every Saturday. That's one day of the week that I look forward to all the time. Today, I'm going to talk about a number of things, that probably we don't get to talk about quite often. And most of the time it's because we don't seem to understand the value of what we have. But before I get there, I just wanted to wish everyone a belated happy Africa Liberation Day, which was on the 25th of May. Of course, I know there's a debate as to just call it Africa Day or still Africa Liberation Day. But my own personal thoughts is that we should continue to call it Africa Liberation Day until we are totally liberated, both from the political point of view, economic point of view, cultural point of view. There's still a lot of work that we need to do in order to acknowledge ourselves. Quite often, we feel that whatever achievements that we make, if they are not recognized by CNN or BBC, they're not worth anything, and yet, Radio Kenya or Radio Zambia or TV and so forth can give us the recognition that we need, and that is really what we should care for. So the first thing I want to talk about, whilst we are still on the Africa Liberation Day, I also want to state that in Zimbabwe, in Harare, they are setting up an Africa Liberation Museum. The government has allocated quite a large piece of land, and they are going to have a museum which will encompass or encapsulate all the liberation movements and activities that took place for the liberation of Africa, and hopefully, as it gets completed, that it will encourage all of us, regardless of which part of Africa we are from, to be able to visit Harare. You go to the Africa Liberation Museum, and at least you'll see, what happened, with the Jomo Kenyatta, and what happened, with the Patrice Lumumba, what happened with Ben Bella in Algeria and so forth, This is history which under some of our current educational systems, we are not teaching that, because they say history quite often is taught by the victor, so that they glorify their victory over us. Okay, but right now we have to write history in our own way, acknowledge our own victories against colonialism, and that we have our own heroes who played a major part to be where we are today. So with that, again, I say, let's always take cognizance, that Africa Liberation Day, May 25th, is just as important as Independence Day in America. July 4th, everybody's rejoicing about it and so forth. But we have to also start rejoicing and acknowledging our own victories. Now, the major topic I wanted to talk about is the intellectual property. I don't know, some of you may have heard about that terminology, intellectual property. What does it mean, and how does it refer to us as an African people? Quite often, because we don't seem to relate to that and understand what intellectual property is all about, we make certain discoveries, make certain innovations. And the first thing that we do is to go and look for Western investors. We go and look, get recognized by the West, who will get a patent on our own discoveries, on our own materials and so forth, innovations, and they make all the money. And because they know we don't understand what this is all about, they give us maybe some money to go and buy some beer, and we'll say, okay, thank you very much, and we happily live. Intellectual property is really something that probably everyone is capable of having. That is, when you convert your ideas into something that is of benefit to community, to society. You can come up with an innovation, maybe a piece of equipment, that can make a world of a difference. Just like, when Bill Gates, came up, with their innovations in IT, or what Elon Musk, came up, with the electric vehicles and so forth. I mean, when they got that technology, assigned to them because they are the ones who started it off, or there are certain aspects of it that they got involved in. They wanted that. So that was their protection of their intellectual property, the idea that they brought into fore, which are now making a big difference in people's lives. Now, when you look at the African continent, we have lost so much of our intellectual property. For instance, things that we take for granted. If you go to, for instance, for myself, I didn't get into a regular hospital until I was maybe 14, 15 years. But each time I got sick, my mother would go and get some leaves in the forest or some roots, and then grind them, put them into hot water, I drink it, and I'll be fine. Okay? Now, the Western people have come to Africa, they start asking for these kinds of things that we have been using, the remedies that we have been using for centuries. They've been passed from generation to another generation, and we so gladly give them that information. Say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we have got a headache, you don't need aspirin. You can take, these leaves and so forth. I remember last time I was in Nigeria, there's a tree, I can't remember the name of the tree, but they use it to cure malaria, all right? But when you come to the Western medicine, you have to go and buy some pills, you've got to buy this and that and so forth. And yet, probably what they are selling in tablet forms or in pills could be an extraction of the tree that you have or the plant that you have in Nigeria. They came in, you told them, oh yeah, this will cure malaria. Then they take, whatever, the leaves, the barks and the roots and everything, they bring it to their labs and start analyzing and see, okay, maybe this is the thing that is causing, curing the disease and so forth. So that is one area, particularly on the pharmaceutical side of things. Right now, we don't know how much we have contributed as Africa to the whole pharmaceutical industry in the world. I mean, this is multi-billion-dollar industry, but how much of that are we benefiting as an African people? Probably very, very little, but we're not even aware of the fact that the stuff that is now being sold to us originated actually from our own forests, from our own backyards, from the knowledge that our grandfathers and forefathers had, which we just carelessly and ignorantly passed on to somebody else who converted it into a marketable and a sellable product. There's the issue of the COVID-19. As you can see, I remember when this whole thing started up, Bill Gates was saying, oh, we don't know how we're going to deal with Africa because there are going to be millions of people who are going to die in Africa because they've got challenges in their health systems and so forth. But basically the reverse took place, okay? We had the lowest percentage of people dying from COVID. I mean, I don't deny that people died from COVID. Yes, we had a lot of Africans that died from COVID, but the percentage compared to how many died in Europe, how many died in the USA and so forth, our percentages in African people is very, very low. And I know of specific cases, I've been to Zimbabwe and I've met some people who had COVID-19 and they tell me, oh, they had this and that and so forth. And they are fine now. And also the other thing that we don't seem to take into account is our relationship with our spiritual world, okay? During the olden days, when our people went to war, they would go and pray to our ancestors, to our spirits, and so that they would get the guidance, to go to war and so forth. And the first thing that the colonizers did when they came to Africa was to cut off that linkage we had between ourselves and our ancestors and our spirits, and try to replace that with the Bible. Okay, the Bible became a very innocuous document, which was rather than meant to save people from sin, it became a tool for destroying our relationship with God, our relationship with our spirits, our relationship with our ancestors, and so forth. So once that linkage was cut off, we became, like chickens without a head. We lost our spiritual campus, so that we became very, very vulnerable to outside influences. We became very vulnerable to the point, that we did not feel that saving ourselves was a noble thing to do, but the ways in which we would save ourselves would be described as, well, this is being heathen, if you're not praying through Jesus Christ, you're heathen and so forth. So we lost that communication and contact. So, again, urge that we must review our relationship with our Creator, of which, our ancestors very key role to it. And now, spirits play a very, big role to it. And when you want to look at it really closely, what we were practicing in terms of our own religion is very much the same as how the, Christians and other religions practice. At the end of the day, we all believe that there's a mighty power which we call God, and but there's a way in which we communicate with that God. Some say, okay, we'll do it through Muhammad, through Buddha, through Jesus, whatever, and so forth. So what we were doing, again, I don't say, think, we should accept that it is referred to as being a heathen, or, as being, ungodly. So, and then you come to the situation of agriculture, which is a very interesting thing. I'm an agronomist by training as well. Today, we talk about regenerative agriculture. It comes in as a whole new theory. And that our people were doing this for generations, okay? As long as there was rain and so forth, our people never stopped, because they knew the relationship between the plants and the soil and so forth. But right now, we now have different kind of technologies coming up for regenerative agriculture. People are beginning to realize that, well, when you deprive the soil of organic material and so forth, you are literally killing the soil, of which the fertilizers, the pesticides, and all the chemicals that were being used in agriculture were basically killing all the life in the soil, and also minimizing the amount of organic matter which would naturally feed back into the soil. So, but also you have, right now, organic agriculture is a big thing. That is, where people are recognizing, that, hey, all these pesticides and herbicides, they are really killing us. That's where most of the cancers are coming from and so forth. So people are moving away from it. And so, well, let's have organic agriculture. We don't use pesticides. Let's see a symbiotic relationship between different plants. There are certain plants that can ward off insects, that can affect one different type of plant and so forth. But this is knowledge that our ancestors had for time immemorial. They would, utilize a piece of land when they found that it can no longer support enough life. They would move to another place, and then giving the area they were working on time to regenerate. And now today it's referred to as a new concept in agriculture, but that is something that we were doing for a long time. So this is the issue of intellectual property. If I can summarize, is that there are so many things in knowledge that we had as an African people that we just passed on to other people, and they're making money out of it, and they bring it back to us, they're repackaged. Whereas, our traditional medicines, they do not have enough side effects. Whereas right now, when people get sick, actually in many cases, you're killed by the medications that they give you. because it's something that is artificial, it's something that we're forcing the bodies to adapt to. Whereas with our traditional medicines, with the natural medicines that we're utilizing, our people were making use of the fact that these medicines were compatible with our bodies, with our physiology and the physical structure that we have as a people. So please be on the lookout if you have a fantastic idea, just to make sure you get it patented, make sure you document it properly so that nobody can come and steal your idea and they start making money out of it and depriving you of doing the same thing yourself. So that's what I have for you today. I don't have much more I can say. Hopefully next week, maybe I'll come up with another interesting subject if you found this one to be of interest to you as well. That's what I got award. So if there are any questions or comments, I'll be very glad to answer that.
All right, thank you so much, co-founder Mr. Mapondera, for a wonderful lecture. We did picked up 2 or 3 things which you taught us on today's meeting. We really appreciate you. I can see there are no questions in the chat room, but there's a comment from Domingos Antonio. He was saying it's true, we have been disconnected from our spirituality because of the Bible, which was introduced to us wrongly, to us. That was a comment from Domingos. That's all which we have in the comment section.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you so much. You all have a great weekend. And welcome, Akua. I hope you have a wonderful lecture. I always enjoy your presentations. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Christopher Mapondera. Enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. We appreciate you to join us on this meeting. And also, without wasting time, we're going to have Nana Akua to lead us in the healthcare lecture. Yes, Nana Akua, welcome to the Pan-African Healthcare Lecture.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good day, everyone. Wonderful to see. Wait, I don't think I see any faces other than awards. Yay, here we go, here we go. Yay. Okay, 3, 4, wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now y'all can cut them off if you want, but I like to greet me with a, a smiling face or something at first. So yes, so thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. So we're talking about stress release and managing stress. And I think one wonderful way is figuring out what makes you happy, what brings you joy, right? Always keeping that in the forefront, knowing what you like. So for me, right, and it's a saying here, right? Those of us in the diaspora that, can't always refer to African proverbs, we have these sayings, right? Which are much like Proverbs, but one saying that I grew up hearing was a closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? So you have to always ask for what you want or what you need. You always have to speak up for yourself. So for me, what helps me get started is seeing beautiful Black faces, right? And so you have to say that. You have to say what it is you need. You have to say, whether it's within your relationships, whether it's within your, whatever kind of relationships, your love relationships, your work relationships, your friendships. You always have to say what it is you need, what it is that makes you happy, what keeps things going, right? So for me, it's seeing your faces as we get started. And so, hey, there's an assignment. I want you to think really quickly. What 3 things bring you joy? Think about it, think about it, think about it. Maybe if you're brave enough, you'll share it in the comments. But just for yourself, I want you to think, what brings you joy? Some people may phrase this as, what are your favorite things? Or what makes you happy? What are your hobbies? Because usually we like to do or the things that we like to do bring us joy or they make us happy. But always know what it is that makes you happy, what it is you like to do, what is it you enjoy doing. You know, what will change an environment, what will change your mood, what will change the energy of the room, you know, what things kind of uplift us. And I brought some crystals. I went and grabbed some crystals. I was about to go grab some more, but y'all got ready. So I won't leave in front of the camera to go get some more crystals. But you know, I stood there trying to figure which ones to show, which ones to leave. So talking about changing the energy of a room. This is selenite. This is a crystal, right? It's sort of opaque. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it kind of gives the illusion you can see through it, but you can't, right? So it's sort of this white pearly color and consistency. This is a healing crystal, selenite, and it is excellent for transmuting negative energy, meaning it can change the energy in a space or place from negative to positive. That's one of its primary jobs, right? And so we always want to have these types of things around to help us. Sometimes we can do those things ourselves from what we do, what we think, what we say, how we interact with people, but sometimes we need a little help. So a crystal like selenite will help you to do that. You keep it in a place. It could be by your door. It could be in the entrance of your home, your office, or what have you. So just in case someone comes around and they're not all the way right and their energy is a little off, or you just know for sure that somebody that's straight negative will come into your place and space and you want to be able to switch that around. This is the type of crystal that you need, right? Okay, so I just wanted to share that. That was one that I happened to grab, and it kind of tied in with what I was saying. But don't forget the assignment that quick. 3 things that bring you joy, 3 things that make you happy, because that's important as we go into talking about what stressors we have in our lives on a daily basis. And it's inevitable, it's unavoidable. As we go through life, as we move throughout our days, we will meet things that will add stress. They will add pressure. They will give resistance to our daily routine. It's unavoidable. It's just that we need to know how to address those things, how to handle those things, identifying them so that we know what it is, and then learning how to address those, how to transmute, how to change, how to transfer that energy and turn it around from what once was a stressful situation to what's now an energetic, vibrant, life-giving, life-sustaining situation. And that's our task for today. So I want to make sure we have a working understanding of what stress is and what causes it. But I think most of us know that it's more so a focus on how to address it, how to deal with it, how to relieve stress, how to release stress. So that is our task today. And I see, let me see if you allow me to share the screen. I'll see if it's if it is possible for me to, if I pulled up the stuff correctly. Let me see, ignore all this other stuff you might be looking at right now. Oh, and of course it didn't do it. I tried. I had gotten in a good little rhythm. With pulling up our lessons, and poof, just like that, it's become a challenge. Let me try it again. Let me try it again. Why is it not up there? Shoot. Anyway, Okay, so we know this stress, right, can look like many, many things, right? We know that some of the symptoms of stress are easily identifiable. Some are not as easily identifiable. But one working definition of stress is a state of physical or mental tension, or something that induces it. So something that causes some kind of mental tension or anguish. And we know that it's a pressure or strain that tends to distort a body, whether it's a physical body, whether it's an emotional body, whether it's a psychological, mental body, spiritual body, but something that gives pressure or resistance and kind of distorts and kind of shakes up things, right? So these are things that cause stress. These are stressors. So some of the symptoms of stress may be depression. It may be difficulty falling asleep. It may be extreme tiredness or fatigue. Even if you've gotten enough sleep, or even if you've not had any physical exertion, it may be feelings of anger or resentment, frequent absence from work or other obligations, impatience, inability to concentrate, loss of pleasure in life. It could be physical symptoms like muscular aches and pains when you've not, walked 5 miles. It could just be intestinal issues. Sometimes our diarrhea or our constipation, some of our bowel disorders, or our indigestion, our acid reflux. A lot of these times, they're caused by stress. It could be sweaty palms, it could be tension headaches. So all sorts of symptoms we may experience when we have stress. And I think I've shared this before. I live a pretty active, fast-paced life. I'm actually kind of slowing down with that. I often have to remind myself that I'm not being hazed or pledged, or I'm not having to be long suffering. And I think that that's a lesson that a lot of us have to learn. And sometimes highly functioning people and highly productive or highly efficient people get into, oh, I gotta go, I gotta do this. Oh yeah, I can do it. I was built for this. Oh yeah, I'm sitting, I'm not doing anything. Let me go do something. That is definitely me. I can be sitting and relaxing and have nothing to do, and I deserve to have nothing to do, but then I'll find something that I could be doing, right? I could go and, research this or that, or I could plan this event, or I could look into, whatever future endeavor I'm next going to, embark upon. I will always find something to do, but I'm trying to get out of that and just sometimes sit and just be, or just do nothing, and watch mindless TV, or sit and listen to music, or whatever relaxing, do nothing type of activity that we can find, because we deserve it. I deserve it. I've worked very long and hard. I always tell folk, I've gotten out of doing some of the wellness business that I do, but for years, 25 years, I've worked 6 days a week. And I'm tired. And it's okay to say, right, that I'm tired. It's okay for you to say you're tired. It's okay to not have a very rigorous schedule. It's okay to not have a bunch of activities that you have to do every day. And that's not to say don't be productive. That's not to say be lazy, but be gentle with yourselves. Be patient with yourselves. Know yourself, experience, all of the feels, the good and the bad, and evaluate when you're feeling them, when you're experiencing them, when you may need to alter or change your routine or your habits or your schedule. It can be as simple as, oh, let me go to bed at this time so that I can wake up at this time and start these sets of activities. Or let me take a break midday. Let me have a siesta, right? Or, figure out what may work best. And it doesn't matter that you've done it for 10 years and that you are able to do it. Because sometimes, again, because the ability to do something, right, and even be good at it doesn't mean that that's what you have to keep doing, or that is good for you. The ability to work 80-hour weeks, sure, you can do it, but is that the best for you? Is that healthy for your mind, your body, and your spirit? So sometimes it's as simple as changing up a routine. So kind of got into ways to handle stress. So that is one of them. Reevaluating your schedule, your routine. Another way to deal with it may be get into an exercise routine. You know, if you're not a gym person, simply stretch, do calisthenics, do jumping jacks, push-ups, lunges, stretches, calisthenics, as we used to call it, you know, when I was younger. You know, get into community work. So if you are used to simply working every day or raising children or being amongst, you know, the family, which is all fine and good and necessary, but you may say, oh, well, let me join a community group. Let me join some sort of organization or club, volunteer my time with some kind of charitable effort. You may say, hey, I need more time alone. Let me figure out a way to express myself all by myself. You may go and sit out in a park, or you may go walk on a nature trail. I think the pandemic, you know, created those opportunities, right? Couldn't really go amongst crowds or in closed-in places, right? Opportune time to start going to local state parks or, you know, areas where you maybe wouldn't have normally made time to go to, and just sit, be with nature, commune with her. Mother Nature is amazing. And sometimes it's just a matter of sitting and doing nothing, breathing and enjoying all that nature has to offer, or taking a notepad and writing. It could be journaling. It could be a to-do list to get it out of your mind so that you're not boggled with all the things you have to do. Putting it on paper can sometimes help you organize with that. Or if you like drawing, sketching, doodling, you know, all of these are things that you can do when you're just sort of spending time with yourself. And these are ways to express yourself. These are ways to not keep everything inside. And it may be also talking with friends, people that you don't usually make time to see or have lunch with, or, you know, chat with on the phone, making those times priority, you know, valuing friendships, relationships. So for some that are always around people, you may need to retreat and go within and be alone. For those who are kind of isolated, always kind of working with themselves and by themselves, maybe make time to spend with family and friends, you know, creating new routines and habits. Hey, once a month, why don't we get together and break bread? You know, all of these things can be really healing. Another thing you can do is nurture yourself, pamper yourself. If it's going to get a haircut, get the scalp massage, get the facial treatment. If it's, you know, getting your nails done, getting a massage. It may be going to a salt therapy room where, you know, there are different types of treatments that most of us maybe don't think of if you're not sort of one of those spa-minded people. And for men and women, nurturing or pampering or spa services are excellent ways to create relaxation and to relieve stress. And you may also decide to tap into your spiritual beliefs, going within all by yourself or communing with other folk who are like-minded in terms of your spiritual or religious beliefs, and tapping into your inner spiritual power. Which brings us to another crystal that I pulled out. So this is called Angel Light. I'm looking at myself, so I hope I have it in the camera to where you can see it. This is Angel Light. So this crystal is good for if you are trying to meditate and if you're trying to tap into your personal guardian angels or spirit guides or Almighty God, to get any kind of message, any kind of interaction you want to create. If you want to feel the presence of God, this type of crystal kind of harnesses in that energy. So it's really good for folk who feel like they're missing someone who has passed on into the spiritual realm. So even on that level, even if you're not saying, oh, I need to commune with God and I got a message or I got a request. So it can be for that, but it can also just be feeling like you can get closer with someone who's no longer here in the physical. So just any and every image or concept you have of an angel or something angelic or something on the spiritual level, angel light is really good for that. So this is one of the crystal eggs. They have them in round circles or balls or spheres. You can get crystals that are in, what do they call these? Like cylinder shaped types of, you can find them in different, you can find them in a little small, what they call tumble or worry stones, where they're just small little pieces you hold in your hand, or they can be larger, raw, rough pieces of the crystals. But whatever, you know, works for you in terms of whether you want to hold it and meditate with it, whether you just want to have it in your space next to your bed. There are all sorts of uses for that, but that might be a way of tapping into your spiritual being. It may be going to church or to mosque or to the shrine house or whatever, but tapping into your spiritual beliefs and practices is another way of handling stress. And then another thing, and this is the last one from this list, is learning how to deal with negative people. Learning how to resolve conflict, learning how to accept that people are not going to, well, let me backtrack. Learning to accept that you can only control yourself and you can't control other people, not what they do, not what they think, not what they say, not what environment they create. You can only control how you respond to it. And you can only put effort and energy into creating the environment that's helpful and healthful for you. So that might be learning conflict management or conflict resolution. That may be reading a book or a blog or an article on how to handle negative people, you know, how to deflect, how to not take on somebody else's stuff or somebody else's mess. Being able to recognize, okay, that's not me, that's them. Like clearly I've not done anything to them. That's something they're dealing with. And sometimes if they're a person that's worthy, if usually they're good, and they just may be experiencing something, you can also accept that, hey, okay, they're just going through something. I don't take it personal. I know it's not me. It's something they're going through. Let me see if I can offer support. There are different ways to handle or manage negative people. But because just like stress and just like change, we know it's going to happen. It's inevitable. You will encounter negative people. You will encounter people where you like, what the? Who are they? What is their problem? What happened to them, right? They say that's what you're supposed to say. Well, what happened to you? Did someone hurt you? Well, you know, whatever. But always, always remember that you are the star player. So with whatever someone else is going through, you still always have to protect your energy, your peace, your sanity, your emotional and spiritual well-being. So identifying those types of things and just learning how to deal with negative people is important, but also learning your limits, your boundaries, how far you can take it, how long you can deal with someone that's not in a good headspace or not treating you in the way that you want to be treated, and being able to kind of navigate through that. That's important. So learning how to deal with folk that are not kind of on your level, not matching your energy, that's an awesome, mighty task. It's something we all have to maneuver, something we all have to learn how to do. And whatever means you can do it, feel free. We have to always employ different tactics, whether it's meditating with some crystals, whether it's burning some sage or some copal or some rosemary or some other, some frankincense and myrrh, whether it's using some essential oils.
Yes, I think Nana Kua is facing some network challenges, but she's going to rejoin back soon. Yes, Nana Kua faced some network glitches, but she's going to join us back soon so that we can continue about this healthcare lecture. Yes, she just lost her network. I can see she had around 5 minutes left to finish off the healthcare lecture. So hopefully she joins so that she can finish up the lecture. Hello, Yvonne, kindly check if Nana Kua is joining through a phone using iPhone.
Okay, let me double check with her.
Normally use that username. Yes, also lined up, we have Dr. Tyrene Wright. She's already on call to teach us about the Pan-African history. She's the author of the book of Booker T. Washington, The Making of the Pan-Africanist. And also she teaches at the City of New York University in the Washington, DC. So blessed to have Tyrene Wright to teach us about the Pan-African, and she has also experience. She had attended meetings about Pan-Africanism. So it's a never miss lecture. We encourage each and everyone for you to sign up for the classes so that you keep on learning more about an experienced professor who is proud to teach us about the history of Pan-Africanism and also Africa in general. Yes, I can see Nana Kwa is back now. Yes, Nana Kwa, can you hear me? Yes, you can unmute yourself, Nana Kwa. Yes, I think Nana Kwa is still facing some network challenges.
Since she's using a phone, she can just click on join audio, then dial in. Then you should be able to.
You have a mic on.
Yes.
Yes, Nana Kwa, you can join the meeting using a cellular or Wi-Fi so that you can be able to have your mic. Yeah, sorry, Yvonne. I think we could not have Nana Kwa coming back here for a slot to some network issues and some technical glitches on your end. To move forward, let me introduce to you our professor, Dr. Tyrene Wright, to start on the lecture. Yes, Dr. Tyrene Wright, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. So I just wanted to ask you a question, admin. I wanted to, this is the last week of the sessions we've been in, right? Is that, yeah, okay, good. Because they have a whole bunch of stuff that I want to recap as we end. All right, thank you.
All
Okay.
right.
All righty, thank you. So everyone, welcome back. This is the last session of the Pan-African. So I see Nana. Okay, well, she was back for 2 seconds. I saw her, but anyway.
I'm back, but my internet went down. So yes, please continue, Dr. Wright. Sorry about that, everyone.
All right.
Okay.
We'll pick up next week.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend as well.
Thank you.
Okay, all righty. So this is the last session of our 4-week course. So I wanted to wrap up. As some of you saw, there is a lot there in the WhatsApp group that you have been reading and watching. And so I want to recap that and, then, bid you farewell, of course, not in general, but for this course. So first of all, the film that you saw in our group is a film called the Cuba, an African Odyssey, which focuses on the liberation struggles in Africa and the assistance that Cuba lent to various budding African nations on the continent. And essentially, there are two major points I want to make, because we always have, one of them is this constant question about how we unify in spite of our internal conflicts and our internal strife. And that is a constant question. It's not unique to any given place in the African world. It plagues us on the continent. It plagues us in the diaspora. And so some of what you saw in there, particularly in the case of Guinea-Bissau, speaks to that. And so I want to note from the outset that I intend to get to that aspect of it. But you had readings from Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. You had readings from Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, and Amilcar Cabral. I should have said it in a different order, actually, right? I should have said Du Bois, Garvey from the diaspora, and then Nkrumah and Amilcar Cabral on the continent. Those readings were just to highlight to you that as we close our discussion around Pan-Africanism, those individuals and then the organizational bodies and nations they would engage in, what their central focus would be is just what we are studying here, which is unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation, okay? And all of them would create something that would contribute to that particular aspect of our struggle, to the actionable aspect of our struggle. So Du Bois, I'll start with him. Du Bois would establish the organization, the Pan-African Congresses, okay? Out of the 1900 first Pan-African Conference, of which Du Bois would be the sole survivor of by 1919, Du Bois would be inspired and see the need to create an organization that would continuously do that work, bringing African people together in order to strategize around our condition everywhere we are. And so he initiates the Pan-African Congresses, of which there would be 4. And in your readings, you should have saw that I put the conference resolutions of the first Pan-African Congress and the 5th Pan-African Congress, of which was the most important, as it was the setting where African leadership on the continent would conclude that the total independence and liberation of the African continent from colonialism and imperialism was inevitable, okay? And that it shouldn't just be independence for individual states on the continent, but that there had to be some expression of continental unity. So as many of you probably already know, there is the Pan-African Congresses, which was the setting, the organizational body in essence, and continuous conferences, name the congresses, that would be the context in which the organization of African unity would emerge. The Organization of African Unity is that continuous body that would be committed to the unification of the African continent, expressing itself as one unified Africa to the benefit of African people. Out of that, you have the present day African Union. Now, arguably, if you go back to, and we don't have time to study that in here, but arguably, if you go back to the vision and mission of the Organization of African Unity, and you will see that Nkrumah and others are very clear that there had to be that, you know, Ghana or any other African nation that wrestled its independence away from colonialism or imperialism, it couldn't just be that alone. It had to have some reflection on the rest of the African continent. In other words, independence for all African nations and unity for us collectively, right? Unfortunately, I think that today the African Union does not always live up to, and maybe doesn't at all live up to, the original vision and mission of the Organization of African Unity. However, we can still study it and study of it and this history from the first Pan-African Conference to the Pan-African Congresses to the Organization of African Unity born within those Congresses to the African Union. We can still study it and see where we went wrong and provide a corrective and instruction on how we can actually get to our ultimate goal, which is to have unity that protects not just us economically and otherwise, but protects us and our lives and our well-being, okay? Everywhere we are on the African continent and abroad. The point of studying this is to show how those who had the core values that are characteristic of Pan-Africanism actually expressed that. And Du Bois expressed his Pan-Africanism through organization and building of organization. That is his significant contribution, more than any of the literary works and studies that I think he does in the United States, in the Americas, because of the fact that it would be organizations that are perpetual bodies like the Congresses that ultimately, repeatedly recommit themselves to our struggle in order to produce and strategize around our condition. That is what is important about his contribution. Marcus Garvey, very different from Du Bois, would in essence produce an organization that for a moment in time would actually unify the African world through one vision and one mission. And so Garvey would come to, I was about to say Du Bois, that's why I paused, but Garvey comes to the United States in 1916. He actually came, if you read chapter 2, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists, he actually comes to the United States under invitation of Booker T. Washington, and he comes to see Tuskegee. He is late in terms of Washington because Washington dies 4 months before, but he's not too late to see Tuskegee and hear about this great model of sustainability for African people. And so he is to see that. It is not just any model, the Tuskegee model, which had 44 industries all in one place. It is the model that Garvey would base, according to himself, the UNIA off of. In other words, let me say it a different way. Garvey himself writes that he created the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the model as a replica of the Tuskegee model. And the idea was to have multiple industries. And once again, an economic approach to our condition. The UNIA would grow and have 47 chapters in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, and would have a chapter in every port and dock throughout the world where African people and Black people were in mass. It is the only Pan-Africanist and African nationalist organization that ever existed of its size. In other words, never before or never after has there been one single organization for African people that was as large as the Universal Negro Improvement Association created by Marcus Garvey. And yes, modeled after the Tuskegee model. I can't even say, I mean, I'll stop there because I just want to respect time. But if you read the readings there, that gives you a little more information about Marcus Garvey and his philosophy. That being said, he did believe in a unified Africa. He was a proponent of the Back to Africa movement. And he was a proponent of African independence in general. So that was his contribution. Tuskegee is a place and a institution. I'm gonna go to the Q&A. So feel free to write your questions down just in case you have any questions about what I'm saying. That being said, the Nkrumah also was someone who had the opportunity to come to the United States and was educated in the United States, had the opportunity to coalesce with African people in the United States. Some would say this contributed to his political consciousness. He received numerous, educational degrees or accolades, holding both a PhD. But Nkrumah is very interesting in the sense that regardless of what his educational level here was, his clear vision and mission was to return to the African continent and lead Ghana, the Gold Coast at the time, to independence. And he does that. His major contribution is just that, the consciousness that he brings to the Organization of African Unity, being an initiator of it, but also his understanding that when Ghana received and fought and struggled for its independence, that it could not just end with Ghana. It had to reverberate throughout the African continent, and other African nations had to, in essence, become independent and free from imperialism. So Nkrumah ideologically is one of the forerunners in African independence, but also on the African continent. And I always say, like, when I teach this course, this is the ultimate expression of Pan-Africanism, when it gets to the African continent in this way, where African leadership such as Nkrumah and then others are very vocal and actively pursuing the idea of continental unity and continental freedom from imperialism. That is the highest expression that Pan-Africanism has had thus far in our history, and in this struggle. And then you have and so just be clear, I'm not going full out on each proponent that you read this week, because there is certainly not enough time for me to do that and give you Q&A, you know, allow Q&A, and maybe show you a clip of the film. So the last individual that I just want to speak on, and you're going to see that in the readings, is the work of Emil Cabral. One of my favorites, because there are some nuanced aspects of the struggle that Emil Cabral is engaged in that are very important for us today, even in our critique of the larger world. So one, he addressed our ethnic and cultural diversity on the African continent and addresses how this may impact us as we struggle collectively for our unity, be it in a locale or for a nation in his case. But he also is the person who, notably, because people are having a lot of conversations about the fact that, you know, Eastern Europe and all of this kind of stuff is in, you know, enthralled in war, and that many Black people who would consider themselves of the revolutionary brand, or at least progressive, and or I won't even use the term, I don't use the term left, but left if you're going to consider you know, white supremacy and culture right, but many of our Pan-Africanists have a notable reference to Marxism and Leninism, which is essentially, and I won't go deep into that, is essentially the aspect of a philosophical line that comes out of Eastern Europe. Okay. And that Eastern European, notably European line, basically asserts a material struggle and essentially class struggle. What we always have to remember as African people, when we engage the philosophical lines or ideological lines of Europeans, is that when they are struggling and when they are struggling with each other, they are not thinking about us. None of what they're up to is about us. So we should always keep in mind that we can never simply adopt their philosophical line and place it neatly on our problems and onto our struggle as if it applies completely. And so notably, I just want to be very clear about what I'm saying. There are a lot of Pan-Africanists on the African continent, and Nkrumah himself, and others who were staunchly Marxist and Leninist in their philosophical line, and made assessments of the African struggle through a material analysis and to some degree a material and class analysis. On some levels, this is applicable. On other levels, it is not. And here is what is not. Emil Cabral, as I'm noting, is someone who made this critique, and he wrote something called the History as a Tool of Liberation. And he's notable amongst our Pan-Africanists on the African continent who actively engaged in armed struggle in his nation, which is notable too for a West African nation. Most did not engage in armed struggle. Most had I would say peaceful transfers of power, but did not have full out armed struggle like East Africa, where Europeans were in large numbers or in substantial numbers in terms of settling there. So they did not, West Africa does not have large settler populations in the way that East Africa did, and caused, in essence, or made it necessary to have armed struggle. So Guinea-Bissau was notable because they have an armed struggle that is fought by the everyday people, men and women. I had the blessing to meet one of the women who participated in the armed struggle years ago in Guinea-Bissau. But that being said, Amilcar Cabral is notable amongst the continent of Africa as Pan-Africanist because of the fact that he said, no, history and culture must be tools of our liberation. Absolutely. And the Marxist-Leninist line doesn't believe that, essentially. Okay, the Marxist-Leninist line is more or less a material analysis and a class analysis. There has to be a class struggle. And that history and culture are, to a large extent, irrelevant. No, not for African people. Not everywhere we are. That is not applicable. We must refer to history, as we are doing right now, as a process, as the process of us reclaiming ourselves, as a process of our liberation. Culture, always important, because culture is who you really are, right? It speaks to your values. Culture are how you express your values. And the way that we as African people, everywhere we are, were colonized was to erase our history and impose European culture on us, and also attempt to erase our own cultures. That's why everywhere we are speaking a European language. Language is culture, right? It should look very ironic that I'm an African person and I'm speaking English, right? That is the mark of colonization, period. And part of reclaiming ourselves is to reclaim our culture. That is the liberatory process. And so Amilcar Cabral is unique in saying that we must use history as a weapon, right? We must recall our own history, right? History gives us prescription. It is the story of how power moves a long time, who has power, who wrestled it away, what one did with it, who was liberated by it. And so it allows us to recall who we are, but also culture is always relevant. And when we engage in a culture that does not serve us, as most Western cultures do not serve African people, then we are being taught how to fundamentally work against our own best interest. And that is a condition that plagues us throughout the world, everywhere we are. So Amilcar Cabral is very notable in our study because he made the nuanced adjustments amongst the list of Pan-Africanists on the continent. Further, I'm going to segue into just a brief clip on the film, or I might just note them because I don't know how much. Okay, well, we might have a couple of minutes. What you should have saw in the film, Cuba and African Odyssey, is that Cuba lends support to many African nations, one of them being Guinea-Bissau, led by revolutionary struggle, led by Amilcar Cabral. In the documentary, you see that Cabral, although he agrees to get strategic and even military supplies and support from Cuba, and strategic support from Cuba, he refuses to allow Cubans who also would come to Guinea-Bissau to fight the struggle for liberation in Guinea-Bissau. In other words, only the people of Guinea-Bissau would take up guns for their struggle for liberation against the Portuguese. This is very important because the line and the understanding that Amilcar Cabral is asserting is the fact that before colonialism on the African continent, we are ethnically diverse, okay? We are the oldest neighbors, the oldest friends, the oldest foes, right? And we are ethnically diverse. Prior to colonialism, we were not one homogeneous group of people in Guinea-Bissau or anywhere else. And so he recognized the ethnic diversity that existed in Guinea-Bissau and recognized that this struggle against the Portuguese would be the struggle that consummated our relationship as a unified people on the African continent in that particular locale. Let me say it a different way. This struggle, that armed struggle that the people of Guinea-Bissau would engage in, would be the activity that consummated their relationship as one unified people, people of Guinea-Bissau. Why? Because prior to that, they were not ethnically homogeneous. They were not all the same. The country was like most of Africa, ethnically diverse, and they may have been in harmony, and they may have very well have had numerous conflicts prior to that, okay? And so this activity, this engagement would bring them into relationship with each other and forge them into being a one and unified nation. Let me say it in the words of Amilcar Cabral. He refused to allow any Cubans to take up arms in the struggle. They could lend support in every other way, materially and otherwise, but it could not fight the struggle for liberation against the Portuguese for the people of Guinea-Bissau, because Amilcar Cabral said that the struggle would prepare the people for the victory. And the victory was being a unified nation and one people. And the only way to do that was to allow them to go through this struggle together, fight side by side for their common interest. And the reason why that's notable in the context of our study of Pan-Africanism is because of the fact that everywhere we are, we have to deal with the ethnic diversity of African people. However, everywhere we are, we have a common struggle. And so we have to understand that our common struggle against white supremacy and culture, against racism, even against xenophobia, is what is going to make us one people, right? Remembering again that Pan-Africanism is always an action word, a verb, meaning unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. Pan-Africanism does not simply mean unity. Pan-Africanism means you are doing something to eradicate the oppression and exploitation of African people and Black people everywhere we are. And then we can define that thing, be it build an organization, be it build a movement, be it build an economic base, right? But it is always an action, right? It is not stagnant. It's not a feeling, Pan-Africanism. That's what should be very clear. And so Amilcar Cabral is notable, just to bring it back to him, he's notable because he recognized we do have conflicts that predate the arrival of the European amongst ourselves. We do have diversity that predates not only the existence of European, but the arrival of Europeans on the African continent. And so when we struggle via Pan-Africanism, when we engage in struggles that are Pan-Africanist in nature, we always have to remember that this is us consummating our relationship with each other. It is a consummation of our relationship with each other in light of a common struggle. Okay, so, and finally, I probably won't show a clip of the film because I don't want to just go over time and it would take me over time. I'm like 1 minute away. But last but not least, if you watch the film, you know, it begins with Patrice Lumumba. And Patrice Lumumba is sometimes referred to the person who was the subject of the most important assassination of the 20th century, because it was the struggle over whether or not the East or the West would control the heart of Africa, being the Congo, and ultimately the resources that come from the Congo and the 9 surrounding countries. It's just his story, and that struggle is just a reminder that as much as you would think that nobody cares about what we are up to, the truth of the matter is that everybody cares what Africa is up to, because it is the source of power in the world. It is the seat of power, really, for African people, but Europeans seek to control it, which allows them to be powerful in the world. And so I won't go deep into that, but just know that the attempt by Patrice Lumumba to have unity in the Congo and kick the Belgians out and not be exploited by the Western world was such a great threat. There are people, there are nations that are diametrically opposed to the unity of African people. Why? Because it is a threat to their survival, being that they are unsustainable. And if we're talking about Europeans, Europe has long ago been unsustainable, which is what brings them out into the world as imperialists. So watch that film. I mean, if you guys put in the chat, like show a couple of minutes, and I'll just go to it. But other than that, I do want to just do Q&A. I want to remind everyone that I'm sure that someone other than me has brought forth just a sample of what you should be doing in terms of your role in I Love Black People. The whole lecture I engaged in should sort of steep you in the tradition of Pan-Africanism so that you can understand why you do what you do as someone who is an ambassador for I Love Black People. And the actionable measure we want to take here is that every day, all day, when you have the time, you are to take action through the tools that you are given in this organization to protect the lives and the dignity of African people, right? And just remember that Pan-Africanism is an action. It is not stagnant. It's not just people. So it's a noun, but we seek for it to be an active, an action, as opposed to, and historically and traditionally, it is actionable and it is action. It speaks to our action on behalf of securing not just our lives, but our dignity in the world. I'll go to Q&A really quickly, but I think I'm pretty much, I started early. I'm not sure, like, I don't know if I'm out of time, but I'll just take a couple of questions because I don't want to leave people hanging. So let me just, okay. Do children go to all these stress situations? Why did African Union take out the eradication of foreigners in Africa? That's interesting. I think the African Union, thank you, Kyle Toon, notable. I don't think the African Union is living up to the vision and mission of the OAU. Just that simple. And, you know, I do know, and this is public information, I do know that, you know, 60% of the funding for the African Union comes from the European Union. How can you truly serve the interests of African people and the African continent when you are financed? You know, whoever controls the, you know, purse strings controls the agenda, you know? And so That's my simple, very short answer to you. The African Union, we should always interrogate it. It is a modern expression of an age-old organizational body, but it is not completely and has not completely lived up to the objectives. And it is overwhelmingly complicit in allowing Europeans to have economic control and therefore control the agenda of the African Union. That is very problematic. Very problematic. Okay. But one of the things I know is this. I probably said it in the beginning. Africa is extremely young. Most of you that are in the African continent who are in ILoveBlackPeople are very young people. And so, you know, you're talking about 1.4 to 1.6 billion people, most of which are under the age of 30, on the strongest continent in the world, with the concentration of the world's resources in the Congo and the 9 surrounding countries, the fastest growing entrepreneur markets in the world. The last component is just this ideological development that says Africa and African people are going to benefit more from Africa than anyone else on the planet. And so that force in and of itself, that new blood, that young blood is going to change the trajectory of Africa going into the future. It's just the ideological development component that needs to happen. And a reminder that, you know, to reassert our Pan-Africanist objectives is an ode to the tradition that we have been engaged in since we started fighting against colonialism. Okay, so yeah, I'm with you. Tuskegee is a place and it is an institution. So when I speak of the Tuskegee model that the UNIA was modeled after, I'm speaking of the institution in essence, but at that time it was one with the community. Unfortunately, today that's not necessarily the case. But the Tuskegee model was the model of the 44 industries that Booker T. Washington sought to export throughout the African world. Can you provide a context on how Pan-African organizations coordinate with international Pan-African bodies? Well, there's a couple of things going on right now. It escapes me, but there's a couple of initiatives right now that are being put forth by the African Union. I actually contributed some recommendations to one of the members of the High Commission Committee that in this decade, it's the decade of African roots. And so they are seeking now to connect with, you know, Pan-African organizations. But you can go to the African Union's website because that's on their website right now, this decade of decade of African roots and something, I forget the whole term of the initiative, which is a 10-year initiative. But I would say that the African Union is one of those ways. I'm not satisfied with the extent to which it does. So, you know, I don't think that there's one way except for those organizations to connect themselves to those international Pan-African bodies, right? And I would bring up the UN, but to be quite frank with you, if you watch the film, you'll see the role of the UN, how it's disrupted our independence movements and our struggle. And I just don't question, I question the authenticity and UN involvement in Africa always, just because of the history, you know. It was created to respond to World War II and the Holocaust. It was not created to advance the interest and protect the human rights of African people, which is why, as it's created to, discuss, set boundaries, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the emergence of the UN post World War II, it's in light of a genocide against Eastern Europeans who are culturally Jewish. You see in stark contrast, the UN, go against the best interest of the people in the Congo and in the interest of the Western world and European nations, and undermining the independence and liberation of the Congo and sort of facilitating the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. Why am I speaking of the UN? Because the UN always actually works very much closely with bodies like the AU and the EU. And some of the initiatives that come out of the African Union go through, the UN and I know that to be the case right now. But so those organizations have to connect themselves with entities like the African Union and international bodies. Well, just because there are no more European colonies in Africa doesn't mean that there is not colonialism being expressed. I would disagree with that. There are no more European colonies, but in the traditional sense, but there's definitely neo-colonialism, right? So there you go. So in essence, under neo-colonialism, there are still European there are still African colonies or European colonies in Africa, right? That is our constant dilemma, neo-colonialism. Colonialism just, Kwame Nkrumah wrote a book called Neo-Colonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism, so, I can't agree with that, because there are still that wouldn't be why the reason why they would take that out of there, so that we could be sort of confused about the fact that colonialism and imperialism is still expressing itself in the African continent. It's just called neo-colonialism, where the person who is in the leadership position now looks like us. And it makes it much more complicated, which is why I wanted to end with that discourse around Amilcar Cabral, because what do you do when the people who are oppressing you look just like you? And you have bought into this idea that culture doesn't matter, right? If you are of the revolutionary persuasion. No, culture does matter, because you have African people expressing European culture and agendas, right? Everywhere we are right now, we're pretty much in a neo-colonial stage of our struggle. We have a lot of brown and identifiably African people all over the place, right? Do they represent us and our interests and what is good and for Africa and African people? No. I could do a whole course on that, but I would have to mention too many names about people who look like us and are inherently committed to working against our best interests. Right, so you're saying the same thing. Some pride, you said the same thing that I said, exactly. Yeah, so in the Panama leads Colombia, because essentially it's a struggle along racial lines, right? And the only reason the U.S. The U.S. Listen, anytime you see any Western nation involved in anything that concerns African people and others, you must know that they have some economic interest. The only reason why the United States got involved in the Panama-Columbia situation is because the United States wanted to create the Panama Canal to open up the oceans, the waterways. And so the United States financed the resistance in Panama so that they can break off and be their own country. And the United States could, have this agreement with Panama to cut through the landmass and build the locks, the chambers, so that the ships could go from the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf to the Pacific Ocean without having to go around those large land masses, right? And so open up trade. But the United States is just like any Western nation. Be clear, the United States is a European nation. If you ever flown to the United States from Europe or from any part of Africa, you will know that right before you get to the United States, they will announce if anyone who is a part of the European Alliance, fill out form, whatever. Well, that's because the United States is a European nation, right? It is that calls itself white, right? So it's an expression of white nationalism. Yeah, of course. You guys are answering your own questions here, but that's good. Well, the Colombian government overwhelmingly, most of the entities out here in terms of nations were European nations, and I right? And so I'll leave it there. Is unity in Africa really a reality? No, not yet. We're working on it. That's what we're up to. It's not gonna just fall in our laps. We've got to work on it. Yes, see, Emmanuel said, wow, 60%. Yes. I don't know why so I don't know why is Israel an observer in the AU? Kwame Ture said no participation, no observation. Yes, that speaks to what I or previously said, that the AU should always be interrogated and probably should be looked at with some level of suspicion, right? Could you truly serve the interest and the objectives of African people if 60% of your funding comes from the EU? And it probably is more than that now. And then at your headquarters, the building is donated to you by the Chinese. Everybody has their hands in Africa, all these poor people. And why do I say that? Because Europe is resource poor. The Chinese have a population explosion and are overpopulated and certainly don't have the resources that Africa does. And so they want land, they want to come into Africa. So listen, yes, all of them hate African people, love African resources and land. Land is a resource. It's what God is not making any more of, And so why is Israel allowed to be observer? Because they're obviously observing what Africa is up to. But also too, the people controlling the African Union are not committed to what's best for African people. Like I said, the African Union, there are a handful of little things that the African Union has done in the last 20 years that serve the interests of African people, the free trade, Pan-African free trade and all of that kind of stuff. However, the unified passport, but listen, in spite of those things, and I think those things are notable strides, but in spite of those things, the African Union, to my satisfaction, has not proven that they are committed to the original vision and mission of the Organization of African Unity, not at all. right? So we should always be interrogating them. Thank you. Who is this who wrote this? C. Emmanuel. My cat wants to say that it's time up. Yeah, I mean, we I don't understand what Pride said, because we need to emancipate. First, we need to emancipate ourselves. This is a constant struggle, right? So I hope I answered all of your questions. It's 12:06, I'm well over time. But thank you all for staying in there with us. Watch the film if you didn't watch it already, Cuba and African Odyssey, which chronicles some of what I said, Cuba's support for African liberation struggles, but also just the notable ideological positions that African leadership took. And so I'm going to end there and say thank you again for your time. I am because we are, and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tyreen Wright, for a wonderful lecture. We really appreciate you. Looking forward for our next lecture next week. All right, I would like to thank each and everyone who was with us till the end of this lecture with our professor. We really appreciate you guys. I know you had some plans, but you took your time off and joined us on today's Pan-African history lecture. Thank you so much. I see Domingos, Frank Emmanuel, Kaidun, Pride Mozi. They were very active on our through the chat room, interacting with the professor. We really appreciate you guys. Peace and love to you, Kayo Tuntu. And also today, I know people are going to watch soccer. There's a Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid. Stay safe, guys, wherever you are. Support, but support responsibly. One of the team is going to win. So all the best through your teams. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am because we are Ubuntu.